What are you waiting for? What you're waiting for in life will shape how you live. Today, we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions, avoiding cynicism, and what we can learn from odd people. Tune in as we seek to live the message. This is Living the Message. I'm Pastor Eric Targe, and I'm here with Senior Pastor of the Moody Church, Philip Miller.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, Philip. How's it going?
I'm good.
Christmas is now behind us.
Good grief.
And we're still thinking about Christmas.
Yep.
We're still thinking about Christmas. We're still thinking about Jesus' birth. This past week, we looked at Luke. What is the text?
At the end of Luke chapter 2.
Luke 2 with Simeon
and Anna when Jesus is dedicated at the temple.
Yeah, two people that are a little off, a little different than what we expect from like the characters in Jesus' stories so far.
Yeah, and Luke does that all the way through, right? We've got shepherds showing up.
Totally,
We've got even Mary as the chosen one to carry Christ is surprising. So we have surprising characters all the way through. But it's just a routine. It's sort of like, for an Israelite person going to the temple to do your sacrifice and pay, redeem your child is sort of like going to the DMV and just doing the paperwork and getting your license and getting out, right? And so it's like a trip to just go do the paperwork. Yeah. And here are these two older people,
that
Simeon,
just hang around the DMV.
And they're just hanging around at the temple, and they already know Jesus is coming. Yeah. And they're waiting for him, and just blows Mary and Joseph's mind that they would be there. Yeah, and they are kind of odd characters, Simeon's,
so neither of them work for the temple.
Right? As best as we can tell, they're not employees of the temple. We know Anna loves to hang around the temple. She never really leaves. She's just, whenever the doors are open, she's there. Simeon, we know, is a resident of Jerusalem. We know he's holy, a devout man, full of the Holy Spirit. But as far as we can tell, he's not an actual priest. Yeah. And so they're really just two other people at the temple who happen to be there at the moment when Jesus shows up. And it is this odd moment, and yet it's a beautiful moment because they've been waiting for this day, for the coming of Jesus.
What I love about that part of the passage is the fact, and what you brought out, is just that they're average Joe and average Jane. They're not people in high and mighty positions. Each of us can see ourselves in some way in that. What do you think as we look at these two people? What should we be taking away? How should we be taking their life into ours?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, Eric, is that in some sense, Simeon and Anna's life is very similar to ours. If you think of it, they've experienced some of the redemption of God. They know that God is faithful and true, that he keeps his promises. They have a whole Old Testament to go on, right? Yeah. And they're trusting in the work of God. And yet they live in the disequilibrium of an unresolved promise. They're waiting for Messiah. They're waiting for redemption. They're waiting for the promises to be made true. And there's a tension because the world around them is broken. And Israel doesn't have sovereignty. And their lives are full of pain and sorrow. We know Anna is a widow, has been most of her life. She only had a 7-year marriage. I mean, how tragic would that have been to lose a husband so early? And Simeon's been waiting. We have no idea how long he's been waiting, but he has the sense of the promise of God that he will see the Christ before he dies, but he doesn't know when. Yeah. And so year after year, just waiting. And in a sense, Eric, our lives are something like that. We have the redemption of God. We see his work in our lives. He's saved us. He's redeemed us. And yet we're waiting for the coming of Christ. That's still future. Yeah. We sing all these Christmas carols of the world being made right and truth and justice and righteousness to the ends of the earth and peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And then we open up our browsers or our news feed, and we see the world as it really is, and it's shot through with pain and sorrow, and that brokenness impinges on our lives. Yeah. And even at Christmas, there's some things we're mourning, right? There were mourning emptiness and lost loved ones and things that once were that aren't. And there's a sense in which we all live in this in-between space between the good saving redemption that God has already done for us, which we trust in and believe, and yet waiting for the full redemption to come. And that's an interesting space, that sort of in-between space. When you have some saving work of God and yet you're waiting for the full package to be delivered, you know?
Now, Anna, we see in this text, she's 84 years old.
Yeah.
Is that right? But Simeon, we don't really get an age.
We don't get
right?
a precise
Simeon,
age.
all we know about him is that he's ready to die, it seems, right? Like at the end of he's like, now I can go. Like
Now I can go.
So they've both been waiting a long time, many years, and yet they keep coming to the temple. They don't grow cynical. And yet so many of us in our 30s, as you and I both are.
I'm about to be 40 in
I know,
January.
but we're still same decade. For now,
Hold on, for the next few days.
For the next few days, right? But like there's a sense in which in our 30s we can become cynical, right?
Yeah.
And like we're nowhere near 80. We're not even halfway there. So why is it? What do you think they did? What did they do to avoid cynicism?
Well, this is a great question because you can imagine a very different scenario, right?
Yeah.
That at the end of their life, instead of being winsome and full of hope and joy and expectancy and coming to the temple eagerly looking for the promise of God, they could have said, yeah, you know, I've been waiting all these years. It's never going to happen. I'm tired. You know, I just want to sleep it off today. I'm not going to show up. I'm not going to do it, right? And the cynicism can creep in of like, I'm waiting. We say God's going to come and make the world right, and yet it's so broken. It's so full of pain. I'm suffering. People I love are suffering. Where is God in all of this? Like that's normal. And there's a creeping, like you said, cynicism, jadedness, sort of almost a pseudo bitterness that can creep in and start eating away at us. You know, you think of like the Israelites in the Old Testament, right? They had experienced the redemption of God, freed from Egypt. They're in the desert, and they're awaiting promise. In a sense, that's the same map, right?
Yeah.
The land in between, when you've had experience of redemption, but you're waiting the fullness of promise. And they grumbled and complained and were miserable, cranky people, right?
Yeah.
And we can get like that. And so we could imagine a different story where Simeon and Anna are actually quite bitter and cranky and grumpy, but they're not. Yeah. They're not. And that's intriguing to me. And your question is the right one, which is how on earth did they keep from becoming like that? You know?
So
that's the right question.
Do you have any thoughts on that? On what it took for them to develop that? Because I imagine they're seeing baby after baby, right? Babies are coming in, constantly being born, constantly being dedicated.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a sense where you're just kind of like, no. Like after a certain number of not that ones.
Is it ever going to happen?
Totally.
Right. Am I just a fool for showing up again and again?
Because we're in that, right? We're waiting for Jesus to come.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it can feel like, okay, come Lord Jesus. I've been praying this for however many years. Right. And it feels like there's just constant sadness and brokenness in our world. Yeah,
that's right. And it can ring false. So I think there are a couple things that they're doing. So one of the tendencies we have when we feel the pull of cynicism or whatever is toward isolation. We can tend to want to pull away, just be alone. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to I just want to get away. And what's interesting is both of them keep coming back to the temple. And I'm sure there were mornings when they were like, I don't feel it today.
Stay home, make pancakes.
But or whatever, yeah. But they keep coming back to the temple. I think that's courageous. To keep showing up. I think of friends of mine that lose a loved one, a spouse or something like that, and then next week they're at church. I think that takes enormous courage, just to keep showing up. You're going to be asked questions, right?
Yeah.
I think it's tremendously courageous, not to isolate, but to keep coming back into the presence of God's people, into the temple, into worship, into relationship with God. there's a discipline there that I think is quite beautiful. Another thing we tend to do is we tend to close off. We get guarded. You've promised me this. I hoped in it when I was younger. Now I'm not so sure. I'm a little guarded, a little closed off, a little less open. We tend to do that, right? But I don't see that in Simeon or Anna. They keep coming with open hearts to continue to trust and to be open to God's presence, to what He's doing in the world. They're opening their hearts back up to Him.
What does that look like for us? Because I feel like the courageousness, I love that you said there's a courageousness of being willing to go out, to go and be with God's people and to trust. Like that takes courage. And I feel like so many people right now are in that spot of like, can I go out to the Christmas Eve service? Like, right? Can I go to the New Year's? Can I go back to church in 2022? But for being closed off, like, how do they do that? How do we do that?
Yeah. So, what's interesting, how flowers, like, I think they're primroses. There's certain I'm fascinated by flowers every so often, but primroses open in the evening and they catch the evening light.
Yeah.
And then they close. And they stay closed during the bright of the day because it's too hot, but they can open and close. And our souls are kind of like that. Our souls can open and close. And we actually know when we're doing this. If we're on a date or whatever, and if things are going well, you can almost feel your soul intentionally opening up, being more receptive, more vulnerable, open to giving and receiving love.
Yeah.
There's something inside of us where we can consciously open and sort of close our souls. And I think when we feel threat or disappointment or discouragement, or maybe our dreams don't come true or whatever, we have a tendency to close off.
Yeah.
We can shut down. And what I think is interesting with Anna and Simeon is they had a lot of life, a lot of pain, a lot of hard things happened to them in life, but they kept choosing to open themselves back up to God and to the promises and the redemption that he's bringing. I think that's quite beautiful. That courage to be vulnerable and to be open like that, to trust. A third thing I think they're doing is they're clinging to the promises of God, aren't they? Simeon's rehearsing promises from the Old Testament. They're clinging to that the redemption really will come, that God will be true to His word, that contrary to all the disappointment in their present day experience, that God is on the move, and that one day Messiah will come. He will show up. One day there will be a little baby who's brought into that temple, and the world will never be the same because he showed up, right? They're believing those promises, trusting in them, holding tight to them, reminding themselves of those truths. That's what we're called to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? That's what Christmas is about. We come and sing the songs, even songs we don't quite believe at times, but we sing them because we know that they will one day be fully true on earth as it is in heaven, right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And then the last thing I think they're doing is they're doing the little things. And
What do you mean by that? Doing the little things?
Yeah, so we see Anna, she's always at the temple. She's saying her prayers. She's singing songs of worship. She's showing up for the gatherings. She's doing it. She's doing the little faithful, devout things, even when her soul doesn't quite feel it. She keeps showing up. Simeon keeps showing up, searching for that little baby, the one who will come. He's been disappointed 12 times, but this one day it will be true. And so he keeps showing up. And Eric, I think there's so much power in just the discipline of the little things of saying, you know what, I'm going to keep doing what's right. Day in, day out. Say my prayers. Do the next right thing. Say my prayers. Show up for worship. Sing the songs. Listen to the word. Meditate on the promises. Keep doing the little things. C.S. Lewis was writing there was a lady who wrote to him, and she said, I'm depressed, I'm discouraged, I don't have a lot of hope in life right now. I'm not even sure if I believe in God anymore. Like, it's all disorienting right now. right? And C.S. Lewis said something, I hate to paraphrase him, but in one of his letters, he said, we all have seasons like that, where these things come and go. The important thing is to keep doing what you know to be true. Keep going to worship. Keep saying your prayers. Keep singing your hymns. Keep reading your scriptures. Keep in fellowship with people who love Jesus. Keep doing the little things, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Isn't that beautiful advice?
That is.
It's so honest to just, because sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. Philip, the year is almost over. In just a little bit, it'll be 2022. And I remember at the end of 2020, one of my friends got a giant 2020 and actually lit it on fire because he was just so sick of it, right? And he's like, here comes 2021. And 2021 came, and it wasn't that much better, right? Like, it was another year of pandemic, another year of just a lot of sorrow and difficulty, and just a lot of tension, especially in our country, but really all over the world. There's just been a great tension as we look into another new year that doesn't seem like January 1st is going to make everything disappear and be different. Looks like it's just going to be another day on the calendar, right? How do we enter into this nevertheless? How do we enter into this new year with Simeon and Anna in our minds? Like, how can they help us to really, with all our New Year's resolutions and all that, to avoid cynicism and truly look forward to Christ?
This is a great question, because in a sense we're all a little disillusioned. Right, going into the new year. I don't know about you, but I always thought at this point we would be like cleanly past the pandemic.
Oh, totally.
Life would be much more normalized, and to have another wave of infections and all of this going on it's discouraging, right? And it is a little disillusioning, because you're just like, I thought we'd be past this. It's going to be a hard year. I mean, we all know, I think sober-mindedly, looking into the year ahead, it's not going to be easy. And so how do you keep going when that's the way the world is, when the promise that you wanted to have fulfilled isn't quite there yet, right? I mean, it's the land in between again. And I think Simeon and Anna's choice to do those little things and to keep coming into the presence of God, keep opening their heart to his promises, trust deeply in his word, keep doing the little things. I think that's actually really powerful as a script for us for this next year. I wonder if it's not the grand adventure, bold goals and achievements that we often think of when we think of New Year's resolutions. We're like, this is going to be the year. I wonder if it's not the big things that are actually going to count this year. I wonder if it's the small things, the little things, the small disciplines of daily pursuit of Christ, of opening my heart, of tending my own soul, caring, trusting in the promises of God, loving my kids, my family, being faithful, devout, showing up day after day after day. I wonder if that's not where it's at in a time like this. That this is actually exactly what we're called to be and do, is to keep doing the little things and maintain our souls that way.
It's a good word. It's a good word. To cling tightly to Jesus in this time, to open ourselves up, not close ourselves off, and do the little things. Are you willing to be that courageous as we go into the new year, to be faithful in these little things as Simeon and Anna were? Well, we hope that you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, go check out the message that went along with it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment if you have the time. And join us next time on Living the Message as we gather together for a new series in the new year. We hope that you were encouraged, equipped, and enabled to now go and live the message.